What if everything you thought about getting rich was actually a trap designed to steal your freedom? Welcome to The Explainer. We're skipping the usual pleasantries today because honestly, we need to launch right into a core premise that's going to completely change how you look at your bank account. We're diving straight into Morgan Housel's phenomenal book, The Psychology of Money, and we're zeroing in on his paradigm-shifting ideas around freedom and wealth.
So if I ask you right now, what is the highest dividend money pays? What would you say? You know, if you ask a room full of finance experts, most of them are going to instantly point to things like compound interest, real estate yields, or, stock dividends. But see, those are purely mathematical answers. And today, we're not talking about math. We're dissecting the psychology of money. And the psychological answer to this simple, kind of jarring question, it literally rewrites the rules of why we even want money in the first place.
Okay, let's dive into this. Morgan Housel introduces this absolutely brilliant, paradigm-shifting idea here. The answer is freedom. He argues that the highest form of wealth isn't about, hitting some arbitrary number in a retirement account. No, it's the profound ability to wake up every single morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. It's about taking total, absolute control of your time. That is the true highest dividend money can ever pay you.
Section 1. The ultimate dividend, beyond luxury goods.
Moving right along to Section 2, the happiness denominator, the science of joy.
Let's see how this builds. Most people envision wealth as just buying luxury items, right? Extending what Housel brilliantly calls their peacock feathers to signal success to everyone else. But to understand why that whole materialism myth is so deeply flawed, we got to look at what actually causes joy. Back in 1981, Angus Campbell, he was a psychologist at the University of Michigan, shifted his focus away from studying disorders and started studying what actually made Americans happy. And he wrote this: having a strong sense of controlling one's life is a more dependable predictor of positive feelings of well-being than any of the objective conditions of life we have considered. What Campbell found here is honestly revolutionary. It wasn't your income bracket, it wasn't the square footage of your house, and it wasn't your zip code. The absolute universal fuel for joy, it's autonomy. It's being the director of your own life. So, the crucial point is that money's greatest intrinsic value is simply its ability to buy bit-by-bit control over your time. When you leave assets unspent, you aren't just, delaying gratification. You are actively purchasing independence and autonomy. Every little bit of savings gives you just a little more control over what you can do and when you can do it. It's the buffer that allows you to wait for a better job opportunity or to retire on your own terms rather than when you're forced to.
Section 3. The reactance trap, when passion becomes a prison.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how quickly a dream can sour. Think about this. In his junior year of college, Housel's singular goal was to become an investment banker. He landed this highly coveted summer internship at a massive investment bank in LA, and man, he thought he had won the career lottery. But the grueling hours gave him zero control over his life, and that dream job, it basically became a nightmare. This happens because of a psychological phenomenon called reactance. Jonah Berger, a marketing professor at UPenn, explains that people just inherently need to feel like they're in the driver's seat. When we feel forced to do something, we feel disempowered, and that triggers reactance, this deep, almost instinctual desire to rebel or just say no. And here's the kicker. Doing something you genuinely love on a schedule you cannot control feels exactly the same as doing something you utterly hate. Passion instantly becomes a prison when you lose your autonomy.
Contrast Housel's grueling investment banking experience with this specific number, $12,000. This comes from a fantastic anecdote about the entrepreneur Derek Sivers. At age 22, Sivers was living in Manhattan working a day job that paid $20,000 a year. Basically minimum wage, right? But he lived incredibly frugally. He never ate out, never took a taxi. His cost of living was just $1,000 a month. So, over 2 years, he saved up $12,000. Now, $12,000 isn't exactly a fortune, but for a 22-year-old musician, it bought him the immense return of absolute flexibility. He had enough buffer to quit his job and pursue his passion full-time, entirely on his own terms. That money bought him absolute freedom. Section 4. The 24/7 mind, the modern burnout epidemic. And this brilliantly illustrates a huge paradox we're living in. Why is it that on average, our society is richer than ever before, yet our control over our time has actually gone down? We're living through a modern burnout epidemic. Think about it. If you were a factory worker in the 1950s, building cars on an assembly line, you detached from your work the second you clocked out. You literally left your physical tools at the factory. But today, if you're a modern knowledge worker, if you're out there creating marketing campaigns, writing code, managing teams, your tool is your head. And well, your head never leaves you. You might officially work fewer hours than someone in 1950, but the work follows you into your commute, it sits right there with you at the dinner table, and it wakes you up stressed out at 3 in the morning. The 24/7 mind means it feels like work literally never ends.
Section 5. Wisdom from the Elderly, the 1,000-person study.
Sometimes, the absolute best way to see the path forward is to look backward. Gerontologist Carl Pillemer went out and interviewed 1,000 elderly Americans to find out what actually matters most to a well-lived life. And the results are incredibly powerful, especially regarding what they explicitly said does not matter. Out of 1,000 people, not a single person said you should work as hard as you can to make money to buy the things you want. Not a single person said it's important to be wealthier than your peers. And not a single person said you should choose your work based on its future earning power. I really want to let that sink in for a second. 3 massive pillars of modern ambition, completely dismantled by 1,000 lifetimes of lived experience.
So what did they actually value? Well, it cuts right to the core of our humanity. They valued quality friendships. They valued being part of something bigger than themselves, and above all else, they valued unstructured time with their children. As Pillemer writes, your kids don't want your money, and they certainly don't want the expensive toys your money buys, nearly as much as they just want you. They just want you sitting there completely present with them.
Section 6. The true value, changing your paradigm.
We really have to change our paradigm about money. We need to stop viewing savings as merely delayed spending. Saving isn't just putting off buying a new TV until next year. Savings is actively taking a point in your future that would have been owned by your employer or owned by your mortgage lender and handing it back to yourself. It is the act of buying back a piece of your future. As Morgan Housel perfectly encapsulates, controlling your time really is the highest dividend money pays. Taking advice from the 1,000 elderly Americans who have lived through the whole shebang points directly to time as the ultimate currency. An unspent dollar buys you flexibility, it buys you a shield against bad luck, and for sure, it buys you the freedom to chart your own course without ever asking for permission.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Next time you open your wallet or tap your card, ask yourself, are you spending your next dollar on a possession to extend your peacock feathers, or are you buying back a piece of your future time? Challenge your daily habits, reevaluate your financial psychology. The highest dividend is sitting right there waiting for you if you choose to claim it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and we'll see you next time.